All right. So I'm Kenton Langstroth. I look after marketing for Protocol Labs, specifically focused on the Filecoin project from a client perspective. So Porter, obviously a great statesman for the storage provider side of our business. I'm really focused on, audience targeting and really trying to figure out how we raise awareness for decentralized storage within specific marketing segments to really onboard more data onto the network. I'm excited to be here, like at this conference. I'm excited to, see a lot of our storage provider partners in the audience here, and obviously excited to share with you insights and understandings that we've gleaned from a bunch of market research and, real sort of data storage and selling proof points. So to kick it off, primarily Filecoin today, as far as product market fit, really is seeing a lot of success within academia, specifically within research, and then I would also say within university libraries, specifically with archivists. And the reason why that's really attractive to us is because of the quantity or size of data that they have to store. So Paul, who works for Angelo, who's a solutions architect, has an affinity for PIB people, so people who have a treasure trove of data who want to store it on our network. So, I think from a research perspective, that's definitely a box checker for us. I think the other stuff that's really interesting is from a research or academia perspective, what they are doing is very much mission aligned for why Filecoin was created. Like, we are very much, focused on protecting and safeguarding humanity's most important information. And you can argue whether it's, particle, collider data that's being generated at CERN, or dark matter or neutrino data that's being generated by the University of, UC Berkeley. Like, that data sort of checks that box. So that type of data, that sort of profile is really interesting to us. And the last piece here, not to sort of, go through the laundry list, is really global scale. I mean, Filecoin, really is a global ecosystem. We have a global remit. We're not just focused on North America and Europe. We also really care a lot about APAC and the rest of the world. So from a university and research perspective, there's a lot of great partnerships that we've been able to forge around the globe. Quickly taking a step back before I go into detail about the clients that we're working with and sort of, getting into case studies, I want to sort of set the context for why this industry is really interesting for us. Porter alluded to, sort of the global storage crisis, and you're going to see a bunch of, zettabyte, predictions as far as how much data is going to be generated. While all of that is true, I think the reason why academia and research desperately needs solutions like Filecoin is because their infrastructure plans are much more basic, quote unquote, than sort of what enterprise is doing. So, a lot of these folks don't have great plans in place to, capture the data that's being stored on campus and by their researchers, and are looking for alternatives. So that's sort of, I think, trend number one. Trend number two is the hyperscalers made deals with many of these universities about providing unlimited storage. It's going to be free. We're not going to charge you for it. And over the last couple of years have decided to pull back from that position. So, a ton of data is being generated on campus. You have these free solutions. These free solutions are going away. What should we do? Like, one of my favorite, tweet quotes here is from a professor at the University of Utah who's saying, looks like my unlimited storage that Google promised my university a couple years ago is being discontinued. The entire institution's limited to 100 TIBs. I can fill that up 5 times over with my research alone. So it's a major pain point for universities and for these researchers. And then the last piece, and again, this is something that's occurring in the U.S. It's certainly something that's now occurring in Europe and also here in the U.K. is there's this massive reproducibility crisis that's occurring in research where 70% of research cannot be reproduced. And the reason why that is because there were no requirements or hard and fast rules about how the data of these research experiments should be stored. And now, whether it's the US, whether it's Horizon Europe, whether it's funding agencies here in the UK, how data is stored is and having a really comprehensive plan is mandatory. And it just so happens that a lot of the requirements that they're looking for align perfectly with how Filecoin is architected. So whether that's immutability, like native immutability, whether that's persistent identifiers, whether that's some of like the data integrity or verification, points that Porter referenced in his talk, or even just like long-term retention. I mean, I think on average, research data, lives for roughly 3 or so months, and then magically disappears. So we're making a concerted effort to store data for the long term. We're making a concerted effort to ensure that there are persistent identifiers, and that the data is that data integrity is a major pain point, is a major priority for us. So I think ultimately, like if you think about those 3 trends, it really bodes well for the technology, but it also bodes well for us actually being able to provide a benefit and to solve pain points that exist today versus just being like cool new Web3 technology. So I'm not going to spend too much time on these slides reading these out because they're rather text heavy, but I think from a product market perspective, like researchers are also our port of call, because from a psychographic perspective, they are the early adopters. They are the risk takers. They are the innovators. There aren't layers of procurement that we need to go through to actually develop proof of concepts with them. There's not a lot of red tape that allows us to go from 0 to 1 with these researchers or these research institutions. So really, researchers are our first port of call. I would say university librarians and archivists are fast followers. So the researchers within their university or their collaborators are on board with what we're doing, and then they decide to get on board after the fact. As a marketer or communicator, the thing that makes my job a bit easier is even though these are 2 different audiences, they share a lot of challenges, goals, and motivations, which then allows us to put together comprehensive messaging that really, I think, reaches them and moves them into sort of being open to collaborating or working with us. So have you guys ever played with the messaging map before from a marketing perspective? Do you know what this is here at all? Okay, so at the top, it's effectively the attributes or the things or benefits that we're able to offer as a protocol. And then on the bottom here really is sort of like the benefits that we're delivering to the end customer. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but effectively today, Filecoin provides cost-effective, enterprise-grade archival storage so that data clients gain confidence that their most important data will be protected without breaking the bank, right? So the piece, or sort of like the insight that we had, is data storage is great. It's something that we all understand. We know that it's a priority, but for these researchers, this data that they're generating, it's a lot of times like their life's work. It's the most important thing that they're doing. It's all they're spending their time on. So the idea of not just like storing their data but protecting it is a message that really seems to engender them to want to work with us. And then we as Filecoin, our mission statement is to protect humanity's most important data. But I think to really land the plane with these researchers, bringing it back to them and sort of shining the spotlight on them really is where we're seeing traction and where the needle is starting to get moved. So that, again, is a really important one for us. From a messaging perspective, like we're starting to propagate this across events where this messaging is starting to show up at conferences, social media. We're starting to do like really interesting research projects with the IDC. We're in talks to actually do some really interesting work with Nature around how decentralized storage is really pushing the research industry forward. And we're starting to see a lot of traction. So if you think about industries that are currently using Filecoin today, life sciences is number 1 for us. So it's eclipsed Web3. So 33% of active storage deals on the network are specifically life science focused. A lot of that is bioinformatics, synthetic biology, and also we're seeing a lot of like interesting work like in the neuro and genomic space. So science is really embracing what we're building, and really I think the plan for us is to really build on this product market fit that we have within the research community, and then to leverage that as a mechanism to on-ramp enterprise over time. So a couple of case studies, the University of Utah, this effectively was about, how can they store a tonnage of climate data in a more cost-effective and also, green certified way. So, that those two messaging combinations worked really well. And that data I think it's 200 TIBs at the moment. It's, potentially going to, increase to a PIB plus. So that's, a real nice POC that we're really proud of. Powering dark matter research for UC Berkeley. Again, some of that is cost effectiveness. Some of that is also about data verification. So for them, again, throwing off a ton of data from these neutrino detection centers that are miles deep underground, and wanting to ensure that the data is actually being stored in the most effective way possible. So that's a great one for us. From a archivist or university librarian perspective, the Shoah Foundation is storing PIBs worth of data to document war crimes. So from the Holocaust to what's happening in Ukraine right now, a great use case for Filecoin. And then last but not least, just because we are across the pond, I figured it was probably good for us to thump our chests and to talk a little bit about CERN. It's 10 PIBs of particle collider data that we're storing from a backup and recovery perspective, and that's an ongoing project and ongoing work that we're doing with them. So really excited about the work that we're doing with CERN. So again, if I had to sort of do like the exec summary, we are seeing product market fit with researchers and universities, specifically librarians and archivists. They're struggling with the amount of data that's being created on campus. The costs for storage are going up because that free tier or that unlimited tier is gone. There are all these new data storage and data management requirements that Filecoin is uniquely positioned to address that the hyperscalers don't. And again, for us, and I think going back to some of Porter's key points, like cost effectiveness, yes, but data integrity and I think immutability as well are sort of big benefits or benefit statements that we're making to the marketplace that are resonating. So on the client side of things, research, academia, it's amazing. Last but not least, this is a quick plug for my team. There's a new site called Filecoin. It's the Filecoin Explorer, and what we wanted to do is to ensure that people could quickly at a glance understand the type of industries and clients that are storing data on Filecoin. I think from a industry analyst or sort of media perspective, that's one of the major questions that we get. Who's using the network? What clients? What are the leading industries? How much data are they storing? This site is your go-to destination for that. So anything that you want to know client related, the Client Explorer, please visit. It'll answer all of your questions. And that's it. That's what I got.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Kenton? Have any questions?
Kenton, what's your prediction on what's next? What's the next industry?
The next industry, I think media and entertainment.
Why?
So Showa for USC, it's twofold. Part of the storage that they're doing with us is about war crimes. The other part is Steven Spielberg is a major donor, so they're actually backing up all of his catalog and Warner Brothers catalog onto Filecoin. So I think that's going to be a nice sort of when that project is complete, I think it allows us to go to studios and to other folks in that industry to talk about data preservation and content preservation and whatnot. So I think that could be a big one.
So I can make sure all my John Hughes movies are archived?
Your John Hughes movies, all the classics. We need to talk to. We'll talk to Disney next.
Question over here?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, both Porter and Ken.
Yeah.
In the world of research, especially pharma,
Yeah.
nearly 10,000 patents get filed, but only one drug comes out of that, and all of that sits as data in the world of research that isn't really being used.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can share in terms of how you see that world is moving forward? Because a lot of that data is leading to no drug coming out.
Yeah.
Where does Filecoin sit in this
Yeah, I think on the pharma side of things, I mean, I think it really, in the conversations that I've had, there are some companies that are very open to storing data in a fair, compliant way, so findable, accessible. Like there are others who, for proprietary reasons, like want to encrypt and then upload data to the network. I don't think there's an elegant solution for those clients that are encrypting and uploading where we can sort of extract or sort of share that data openly. But I know that for us, like, we're all about the open science movement. So a lot of the genomics data on the network is open access. A lot of the data from a synthetic biology perspective is open access. So for us, like, we're always trying to encourage researchers to sort of follow that path. I think the conversation is hit or miss depending on like the pharmaceutical company that you're having a conversation with. But ideally, it's open science and not we're not wasting all of those great research studies.
I would add that, when you look at that situation you outlined, that pharma company, what's their next best alternative? And I'm willing to bet that storing all the data from all the failed research is too cumbersome with not enough upside for them. So are they going to bear that cost burden to store, and for how long? And that's where FileCoin, when you get talking to pharma companies specifically, that's probably the second level of thinking about failed projects. They're trying to think of, how do I reduce liability? How do I preserve the research I've done? And that's kind of like the primary use cases. But you do see them having these aha moments where, like, I can store this data for 50 years in a cost-effective way. I don't have to delete it, because my other alternative was storing it as part of my AWS bill, and that was just crushing me, and I'm never going to make money off of it because it's a failed project. So they just tend not to store it. And so they're opening their eyes to, like, oh, there's a new alternative path forward that I don't have to delete this data and have it crush my budgets.
Sorry, it's not a question, it's just an observation.
Yeah.
I mean, the cost of drugs, an oncology drug worth £120 in manufacturing cost is currently being retailed at $40,000 because of the cost of research.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible the amount of failure that's acceptable in the world of pharma. And I'm just speaking on one of the subjects.
Yeah.
If you look at the world of media and the unique rights of how certain content comes together, a bunch of conversations that can be had over there. But you don't consume media the same way that you consume drugs.
Right.
And lives are being lost because people want the billable hours that come from redoing pieces of research, just simply because they can't be bothered to store the data and go back. And maybe there's something FileCoin could.
Yeah, and so this is where it gets into decentralized. So FileCoin Foundation, Protocol Labs, we're not in the client rooms for the most part. It's up to the people storing the data or selling the business. It's their responsibility to have those narratives. We provide use cases and resources so they understand that narrative is an option for them to include in their client conversation. And it's happening more often. I think what you see from the community is they're always innovating and adding to the conversation to provide more value for the clients. And that's why our logo list keeps growing. That's why our data onboarded to the network keeps growing, and that's going to continue to evolve. But it's fun and it's a two-sided coin, and you don't have control over that conversation, because we could sit here and be like, yes, they should absolutely be talking about it, but in a decentralized ecosystem, frankly, that's out of our control. All we can show is, hey, this was done in this scenario, and the client really liked it, and it caused them to use FileCoin and share that story out, and hopefully it catches on.
Right, another question here.
That's good.
That's okay. Yeah, so you mentioned the Web3 use case earlier, and I noticed Solana on your last slide there. I was just curious, what is the use case for like a layer or blockchain like Solana?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding, and again, I think I would probably, if Antor, one of our solutions architects, was here, like, he could provide more detail. My understanding is they're actually like backing up their blockchain onto FileCoin, which I think is a really interesting use case. Angela could add some.
So Solana is a little bit of a unique case because they have their blockchain structure very unique case, and they kind of did the pre-work, the structure the data in a really unique way, because not everybody does that. But now they're able to archive it and retrieve it, vice versa, very efficiently, very partially when they need to roll back or have a certain part of it. Thank you.
Nice.
Okay. Right.
Okay, good.
I've got a question.
Oh,
The layman question again. I'm sorry.
I like those questions.
So could with central bank digital currency
Yep.
coming to the surface now, uses AI, uses blockchain, could that fit into Filecoin?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna steal a line from Porter and say that I think if there was, interest from, folks within the Filecoin ecosystem to explore how that might work, or to, collaborate to make that happen, like certainly like something that could potentially happen. Not something that we're like actively pushing as a foundation or pushing as Protocol Labs. But I think the idea of, exploring new financial, systems, models, currencies, that sort of thing, like within the realm of decentralization is a great thing.
On Bitcoin mining, of course,
Yeah.
you need to follow those transactions, don't you?
Yes.
Of course, has to be filed. Which
Yep.
I would have thought, from what you're saying, if I understand it right, this is perfect for Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, I mean, they have their own proprietary blockchain and sort of like way for tracking all those transactions. So I think we're maybe not a great resource for Bitcoin, but I think for organizations that, do need to, keep track, whether it's like, some of Porter's references around the insurance industry or the traditional financial industry where they need to keep records for, 5+, 10+, whatever it is, years, like Filecoin is a great repository for that.